probably made a couple $100 on this, right? He goes, you treated this like a multi-million dollar. He's like, I love how you operate. I love where your standards are. And he goes, let's go out to dinner. And that's where he was just like, listen, I have $11 million I'm bringing back into Sarasota. He goes, do you want to be my guy to do it? Sure.
So today we have Joey Lamielle. He is a real estate advisor and team lead of the Lamielle Group at Remax's Alliance Group in Sarasota, Florida. A former professional golfer and two-time U.S. Open competitor, he brings competitive discipline to his real estate practice. As a longtime Sarasota resident, he holds his GRI, his ABR, and SRS. I know that's a lot of alphabet soup, but they are designations for real estate agents. And he specializes in luxury waterfront and investment properties. Joey, thank you so much for being here, and make yourself at home.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Honor to be here.
So, as a U.S. Open competitor, most people want to know, how did you go from golf to real estate?
It's a very interesting timeline, honestly. But when I was playing and competing and traveling, I actually ran a crew that we were doing flips as well.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, well, it sounds neat, but it really wasn't. Like, I mean, right before I'm teeing off, I'm getting into an argument with a contractor, trying to make sure that, hey, this guy's doing what he's supposed to do, etc. So it sounds cool, fun, glamorous, but it really wasn't. And probably looking back, I should have focused on the golf side of things and a little bit more. But no, I mean, I've always had a passion for real estate. It's an industry that I love. It's an asset class that I love. And that's pretty much how I got into it. Right out of college, ended up doing a couple of deals, kind of got that deal fever going, got hooked. And, in the meantime, I'm still traveling, golfing, competing, week to week, 45 weeks a year, give or take. And just always had my hands in the real estate market.
I think that everybody thinks that flipping is amazing until you actually get into it and actually try it for the very first time. And then you realize what a mental load it is, because it's not so much the actual physical work, it's the mental aspect that goes along with it that most people don't think about. But I think that goes with anything that we do. It doesn't matter what job it is. My husband, who's also my partner, used to travel for a living. And people are always like, oh, yeah, you got to fly around the country. He goes, yeah, until you do it 50 out of 52 weeks a year. And then you don't want to see an airplane.
Well, there is, and yes, that's, I have to keep my understanding of when people come to me wanting to do a flip of all the other, the stressful parts of it. But honestly, my gut, honest opinion on that is it really isn't a lot of pressure. Pressure is making a 4-foot putt down the hill and to the right to make the cut into the weekend in a golf tournament, and then add a million people watching you. That's pressure in my book, right? So my past career playing golf definitely set me up for, I was in high stress situations on a daily basis, right? And true stress, meaning if I don't make the cut, I don't eat, right? Yeah. Or if I don't make the cut, it's hot dogs and butter for dinner for the next week, right? And, I love food, so that was not an option, right? So, jumping into real estate in my world, the world that I came from, there was no pressure, right? Sitting in front of somebody's dinner table, getting a listing, I don't find that a pressure-packed situation. I find that, hey, we are two people having a conversation, deciding whether or not we're going to work together, right? And that's honestly the way that I've come about doing that. So.
Well, it's funny because that was the next question. Was how did you use that to translate into doing high stakes property deals? Because I got in 2008 which was like the perfect time in real estate because everything was falling apart. And I sat at so many dinner tables crying with people because I'm just like Dolly Parton in Steel Magnolias. Nobody cries alone in my presence. So, I mean, I've been through that kind of ringer. So I can understand every occupation, that's the word I was looking for. Every occupation has what you consider stress. And I guess once you've been on the aspect of, you don't make the putt, you don't eat to real estate, then that's probably an easy transition.
Was. And, and I just honestly, I had this conversation today where I had a success coach. I'm part of a BNI meeting and we met this morning at 7:30. And she came up to me and was started asking me a lot of questions like, hey, what industry were you before you got into real estate? And I told her a little bit about my golf career. And, she basically was like, well, how did you find that's like two opposite ends of the spectrum? And I was like, well, exactly. I mean, honestly, a year and a half into real estate, I almost quit, walked away because, in the golfing world, I was inside the ropes. I did not have to talk with anybody. I did not have to be outward. I did not have to obviously sell a thing and be forthcoming to people to have conversations. And I found out that I really like that part of it, right? Like getting into real estate where, it is person to person, you're having conversations, I mean, I talk with 80 different people a day, right? And, by 1 o'clock, I was just shot. I was worn out every day. And I'm sitting here, I'm scratching my head like I could sit on the driving range for 8 hours and then go dancing that night. I mean, without any question. And here I am starting at 8. By 1 o'clock, I'm fried and I don't know why, right? But it's a different set of muscles. It's a different, you're using your brain power more than your body. And yeah, there was a point a year and a half into it. I almost said, so long, I'm out. I made a mistake, guys. Sorry.
If you don't have a social battery or you don't know how to keep an eye on that social battery and you don't feed off people, there are times that you could literally go, yeah, I'm done. There are days, even myself. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years and I absolutely adore what I do. But there are days that I'm like, I'm going to go play with animals. I'm done.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, what is an exact reason behind you advising a buyer to walk away from this massive multi-million-dollar listing and essentially what you would be giving up an immediate paycheck? What would be the reasoning behind that? Just, because you're telling a buyer to walk away. And most people look at that and go, oh God, that's a big paycheck. And because we don't have guaranteed paychecks.
Yeah, like this was in 2000. So I got started in 2012. This was like 2014. Yeah. I had a buyer come to me. It was, I got my start, working in the proper word for it, but in more of the depressed part of Sarasota, we'll call it. Yeah. And selling at the time, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 houses. Right. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I can just make $100,000 sale, like I'm set. Right. There was a point in my career like that. Right. And so I met an investor and, he was selling an ALF, an assisted living facility in Michigan, coming on down here and doing a 1031 exchange, basically taking all of those funds from there and putting them into Sarasota, like kind property, so we can avoid paying, a large tax to the IRS.
Correct.
And so, he was saying, all right, well, listen, I want to buy rental properties, but I'm only going to buy them if you're managing them. I want a one-stop shop. And at the time, I had no rentals of myself, of my own. I've never managed a rental, but I said, absolutely, we'll figure it out along the way. Let's get started, right? Yeah. So we ended up buying 50 houses. And then he came to me and, said he's got about $1.5 million to spend and he wants to be on Siesta Key. And I mean, my eyes just got like, wait a second, I just hit the lottery here, right? Yeah. And so we're looking and, we find a property, get under contract, doing the inspection. and there was a lot of issues that we couldn't necessarily see that the inspector picked up. And going through this report with the buyer, he was just like, Joey, what would you do if this was your money? And I started laughing. I said, I'd run like hell. There's no way I'd buy this house. Yeah. And he says, all right, that's what we're going to do. Cancel the contract. And I just had a moment of, what did I just say? What did I just do? Like, are you serious? Right? I think I had a tear that night because I just talked my way out of a very large deal. But he asked me a point blank question. It's like, if this was my money, there's no way I'd buy it. There's $200,000 of what ifs in that place. And at that time, comps wouldn't justify it. So you'd be upside down 3 months into it, right? So, karma, whatever you want to call it. 3 months later, we ended up buying a $2.2 million home. Yeah. So, it's and we're still friends to this day. I mean, we've done millions and millions of dollars of deals together. But, we started off with a $20,000 property. That's how I met him, right? And moving on. So, that's just one of the awesome things about this business is that you never know who you're talking to, right?
True.
And you never know where these relationships are going to evolve into or spawn off into, anything like that. So that's what the cool thing is.
Exactly. I've always said one deal is not going to ever end my career. I'm not willing to go to jail for anybody. I'm not willing to sacrifice who I am over one deal. It's not worth it. And by doing that, you showed this person you're not concerned about the money. You're concerned about doing a good job. And honoring that means everything in this industry. Because I don't know about you, but I strive to make our industry better. As real estate agents, a lot of times we're seen as just as bad as used car salesmen because there's so many people that are out there just doing it for the one deal. And I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for the 18 years that I've been in it. And that makes a difference.
I agree. I mean, totally. And, I've even said that, there's times where, sellers, buyers have asked me to cross a line or work in the gray area. And it's like, listen, that's, it's not who we are here. That's not what we're trying to do. There's a way, to attack every problem, and let's try X, Y, and Z first. So.
Exactly. And the easy way isn't always the best way, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
How did that heartbreaking moment of honesty ultimately lead you and that same client to purchasing 40 more homes, like you said, just 3 months later?
Well, it goes back to, like, this was before we started honestly working together. He didn't tell me his plans, right? He just said, I want to buy this $20,000 home. It was listed at like $27,000, and I got it to him for 20, and I was happy, right?
Yeah.
And I worked the deal, I worked the client, and at the end, Joey, he goes, I got to tell you something. You probably made a couple $100 on this, right? He goes, you treated this like a multi-million-dollar. He's like, I love how you operate. I love where your standards are. And he goes, let's go out to dinner. And I'm like, all right, well, I like you. Not that much, not that much to go out to dinner. But I was like, all right, fine. Let's go out to dinner. Let's talk. And that's where he was just like, listen, I have $11 million I'm bringing back into Sarasota. He goes, do you want to be my guy to do it? Sure. So, I mean, it was just, and that's kind of how I approached everything. I mean, I'm very shoot from the hip, blunt, don't really hide too many things. You know where you stand with me at all times, and I tell it how it is. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea, believe me, but, for that person and that, that business mindset, it definitely does cut through with a lot of fluff and kind of get straight to the point. And I think that's what he appreciated.
So being the former golfer that you have been, you're in the middle of Florida. Well, I guess you wouldn't still be a former golfer. It would just be what the where you compete. So I'm assuming you still golf, yes? Okay. So being a golfer, being in Florida is a huge golfing community. North Carolina is as well. We have a couple really good golf courses, here in Charlotte, and also around the state. But when you're evaluating those golf course properties, what hidden factors dictate long-term appreciation that a standard home buyer completely overlook?
It's a good question. Typically, when somebody says, "Hey, well, I'm looking for golf communities," I try to get a better understanding of what type of golfer they are first and foremost.
Okay.
Right? I mean, are a weekend kind of guy, or are you a person, girl, or are you like 3 times a week, 4 times a week? What are you looking for in a club? How competitive are you? Because in our area, gosh, there's 25 golf courses maybe.
Yeah.
And so, if you're a competitor, then there's top 5 courses that I can say, hey, listen, there's so many good games and so many good players, like a concentration of players in this community that you might want to take a look at, right? So that's first and foremost. I try to get their just what they're looking for in a country club and all of that, right? And then from there, I would say that to answer your question, the the private golf clubs are going to hold more value than being on a public golf course in our area. Don't know if that's true for the rest of the country, but in our area, the gated communities, the ones that have some kind of amenities, at the clubhouse, stuff like that, those are going to be the ones to hold the value long term over just a public or a semi-private golf club here in Sarasota, Manatee County.
So, like, one of the things I never even thought about, but I have done myself in the past, not with a golfer, but I've had clients who have their own particular club that they want to be part of, their own
country club that they're trying to.
No, so like when somebody had a hobby, that's what the word I would. They have their own hobby, so like they play cards. So that was one that I had. I didn't even think about actually connecting people in a golf community. It's like, I know he plays at this level, or she plays at this level, and if you're in this community, you could actually be competing with them. I didn't even think about that's the kind of thing as a real estate agent we actually do as well.
It's more like an activity director, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these golf courses, especially the ones that if you buy in to, if you buy in within the gates, you're a member of the club, right?
Yeah.
There's a few of those here. And within those, you have activity directors, right? Where, there is a whole 30-day schedule for each month of things going on, cards being one of them. Mahjong, I think one of the latest, trendiest games. I've never played it, don't even know what it is, but I've heard of it. Pickleball. Yeah. So, there's a lot of communities like that to where, and it's very common that, maybe the husband's the golfer and the wife doesn't, but there's a social aspect that both people are going to be extremely happy living there. And it's just pairing that with their needs is where that original conversation starts.
So one of the things that we have around here, especially in our golf communities, is fluctuating golf memberships, club memberships, community fees. You'll see course management changing, all of this. How does that affect or impact actual value of the real estate that surrounds the greens?
So there's not, in our area, all right, COVID, and this is going to sound grotesque, I know, but COVID is one of the best things that ever happened to golf as an industry, okay? Because especially in our area and all over the country, I've looked at stats and all of that stuff. So, that's the genuine truth. Golf spiked, the interest level in golf spiked after COVID because it was one of the few things that didn't really get shut down, right? And no matter what state you're in or anything of that nature, it's an outside sport, right?
Yeah.
So in our area currently, memberships have doubled, if not tripled. right? I was a member at one of the golf clubs in here. I think they were charging $10,000 or $15,000 initiation fee. They're $100,000 now,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And there is a wait list 40, 50 deep.
Wow.
So that is, that just tells you, and that's just one golf course. I can give you 15 other examples, right?
Yeah.
But that obviously helps drive value, right? You're getting a certain different, a different mix of its clientele in there that can afford, $100, $150, $200, $200,000 initiation fee, and then $1,500 a month, as disposable income. On the flip side of that, there's a community here, a couple golf courses here that have run into fund issues, that have run into golf course maintenance issues that are going downhill very quickly. And, I don't know if I want to name the specific places, but, another golf course real close to my house basically woke up one day and realized that their average age of the membership was 85.
Yeah.
And they were, holy cow, we're going to have some issues come 5 years. And here they are, right?
Yeah.
They're beg, borrow, and, please come here and be a member, because now all of a sudden, unfortunately, people are dying off. They've lost 25% of their membership like that, And so you just have to make sure, and that's again kind of where I can come in and advise, hey, listen, this golf course has had a few issues. This one's rock solid. This one's rock solid. And keeping my pulse on that definitely helps the players and the golfers if they're coming in to purchase that type of asset.
There's a lot of people who don't think about things like that. We have a golf course here that they got so behind in their funding that they actually had to sell their common areas to the town to make up for being so behind in their fees.
I can name 2 golf courses in our area that have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. They've sold off 1 or 2 holes. One course sold off 6 holes and to develop. And then they're, beg, borrow, and stealing for land, or trying to cram in another 2 or 3 holes in the already existing 13, which you're sitting there scratching your head on some of these. You're like, okay, it is what it is. This doesn't work at all, but here we are.
So you work with not only golfers, but you also said that you work with investors. What do you think is why is it critically important for investors to track not only the trends in the area, but also the macro trends that are going on in the financial world as well?
So we're getting into a subject that I can talk for days on. And that's the truth. I mean, I am first and foremost an investor myself, right? I have exposure to many different markets. I keep track of all of that stuff. It calms me down. I'm a numbers guy. I like it. I enjoy it. So a lot of the external pressures currently that we're feeling are affecting the real estate market. So coming in, whether you're a new investor or seasoned, again, I always like to kind of have a conversation and see, where is this person's head at? Like, are they, don't sound bad, but are they competent enough to understand, hey, listen, time horizons, that's a big question or conversation piece that I have with investors is, listen, if you're trying to flip in our market right now, you better have a steal of a property, not just a good deal, but a steal, right? And then, it's a time horizon thing. If, hey, listen, I want to park some money here, rent this out, or do an Airbnb, I said, great, we can do that. What's your time horizon? And in where we're at in our market, I believe that, if somebody is trying to hold a real estate asset for 4 to 5 years, they're going to be just fine no matter what. But if you're okay, I'm here in town or a work trip or whatever, hey, I want to buy a place, I might leave in a year or two, I'd question that a little bit, or just make sure that person got a great deal to possibly impact the cushion of something else coming down the pipeline, in the real estate market within 24 months, say.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, it's education. As I get more seasoned in my own investment theses and my real estate and everything, I
Mhm.
like to come more from an educational standpoint now of, great, you want to invest. Let's talk about it. Like, what have you invested in the past? What are you looking into now? What are you potentially thinking of the future? And that way I can kind of help start putting some of the pieces of the puzzle together for
A lot of people don't think about what's all happening in the market right now, and most buyers are scared. I mean, we finally got people to kind of understand we're not going to see 3%, 2%, 4% in interest rates again. We finally got people to kind of grasp their hands around it, and then we have to deal with Iran and everything else that's going on. So we have a lot of buyers that are frightened. So having investors that are seasoned, even new ones, but people being able to have finances that they don't have to let fear run them is huge. And that's one of the things that we've seen with investors that are actually connecting the dots between the interest rates, money supply, and actually being able to pull the trigger on a property at the right time. Because, like you said, if they're in it to hold on to it, it's a buy and hold, they're doing okay. But if they're literally buying something just to turn around and sell it in a year or in 4 months, it may not be the appreciation that they're wanting to see.
and you got to keep in mind too material costs and all of that kind of stuff, because a lot of people just, and this is just with, again, this is not good, better, and different. This is, doctors, lawyers, whatever the case may be, they're so focused on their own career and their own what they need to know. And they come in and say, okay, I can read, what does a master bath cost to redo? I was like, all right, well, what are we talking about? And I've done 48 of them, so I can tell you exactly what they're going to be. Right. But what I've found is that people coming from the north, Ohio, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Boston, those areas, people will drop $40,000, $50,000 in a bathroom. And I'm sitting here scratching my head like, no, hold on a second. Like, hold on. As long as we're not importing things from Turkey or Italy, we can get away with much, much cheaper and have it look banging, right? And so that's, bringing people down to a realistic expectation on a renovation is something that I'm particularly good at because I have done it so many times.
Yeah.
And that's I find that to be very helpful.
It's amazing how localized we can get with finances when we're talking about folks that are coming, especially from the north or California, and then they move here and they're like, okay, it's time to put in a bathroom and we've got 6 figures to work with. And I'm like, in one bathroom, hold on. Shut the front door because that's a lot. What are you doing in that bathroom?
You don't need heated floors, people. Just this is Florida.
This is not New York. This is not California. You don't have to spend that much money.
Yep, exactly.
So you've lived in Sarasota for, I know people are going to be shocked, for over 3 decades because you don't look that old. So you must have moved there when you were like 2. What's one of the most profound shifts that you've seen in your local housing landscape?
Well, I'm still amazed. Like, I was just on the boat Sunday, and we're jetting out of the marina, hit a couple sandbars, and then coming back for the day. And I still get blown away by how beautiful the city is, right? Sarasota is from the water, right? And you coming and you can see some of that same stuff going over the bridges and whatnot. But the biggest thing that I've seen is how vertical we've gone. Things are getting bigger and taller here, right? Places where as a kid, we would go hunting for squirrels or we'd go, paintballing and all of these kind of things. These are now housing developments, right?
Yeah.
It seems like west of the highway, every 5 acre plot has been bought and 18 and a half homes are on it, right? So a lot is changing in that aspect where it's not the secret's out. The secret's out. This is an awesome place to be. And, developers and all of that stuff are coming in, have been coming in for the last, decade and a half, I'd say, and really capitalizing on all of that. So that's the biggest shift I've seen.
God's not making any more dirt. So I have definitely seen people when they're moving in, I'm like, buy dirt. True. The song is true. With the constant changes that you guys have in the Florida market, how can advanced technology be used and utilized to keep buyers and sellers ahead of the curve?
First I go to AI. I'm a massive proponent of that. I am, this year I am trying to understand and how to automate almost everything, right? Yeah. To a point, like you're never going to lose that human touch, but the minutia behind the scenes, actively, I'm understanding how to build AI agents to handle this and that and the other. So from a business owner standpoint, you have to be on the cutting edge of that in order to keep growing at the rate that you want to grow at, honestly, whatever that metric is, right? But with your phones now, with AI, with all the chats, the Claudes, all of this stuff, it's being relevant on that. Back in the day, getting your own website and doing SEO, right? That was a decade's worth of things that people had to do. Now that's changed. People don't necessarily dump money into SEO anymore. Now it's AEO and GEO, and so that is where just understanding that and keeping abreast of all of the changes, that is where I feel that even as a buyer and a seller, that's how to stay ahead. Because if you're finding out a property's going to be listed, a day or sometimes a day before it becomes on the market, that could be the game changer, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm having more clients say, how do we do this? How do we get ahead of it? How do we figure that out? It's just networking, and I've been doing this a very long time. So, if we're looking for something, hyper specific, I'll reach out to the top producers and, ones that have been doing this a while that, create a lot of business, and say, hey, just if you come across my zebra or my unicorn, let me know, like, that kind of stuff. And I've done a lot of deals that way.
It's one of the things. I had a land guy call me and he goes, I need somebody to hold a piece of land for me so I can finish up this project and then move to the next one. And being able to connect those people together is massive. So when an investor is looking to purchase a massive portfolio of properties or just a big property at once, how does the acquisition strategy shift compared to just a single standard, single family home buyer?
It becomes more about the numbers than how much you love it, right? A single family home buyer, might pay what I call the I love it tax, right? They might pay a little bit more for the property because they want to live there, they want to raise their family there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? From an investor's standpoint, the way I analyze a deal is like, all right, I'm going into this, I'm buying it at an 8 cap. Is there a potential to create, this to be a 10 cap somehow? How do we do that? What's the CapEx that we're going to need to put into the property in order to do that, right? So it's more about the numbers from an investor side, and a headache, I would say a headache equation too. If there's a lot of tenants that are behind, or, how many evictions are we going to have to do to get this project or this portfolio in running in prime shape, to then either sell it again for a higher multiple, or keep and just enjoy the cash flow. So it's more, bottom line, it becomes more about the numbers and the capital expenditures versus, I love this apartment building, I have to have it, right?
Exactly.
Sure, I'll pay anything. I'll have a 4 cap. I don't care because I love it. I haven't met that investor yet.
Exactly, because if the numbers don't match, it doesn't matter. Now, what's the one big mistake that you find investors make when they're scaling from their 1 or 2 rentals, mom and pop rentals, to the massive portfolio?
Lack of infrastructure within how they run it. I would say, either you're taking a person who has, hey, I have four rental properties. They're all single family homes, right? And I want to scale up and buy an apartment building.
Okay.
Well, when they're doing that, that becomes, when you go from four to, maybe pick a number, 15 or 20, right? Even more than that, yeah. All of a sudden now you have quadrupled your amount of effort. And if you don't have that infrastructure, if you don't have the systems to handle or absorb that amount of volume like that, then you're going to run into problems, and problems leads to bleeding your bank account, right? So again, the piece of advice that I would give is great. Like, you've made the decision, you want to buy a 40 unit complex. Awesome. Show me how we're going to run it. And there, some people scratch their heads. Some people are like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I want to see how we're going to run this stuff, because you're going to run into issues if, your rent collection process is not right, if your leases are not correct, if this, that, and the other. So it's just, again, a conversation to see where they're at. And, I have a lot of worldly experience. So if there's anything that I can help avoid, right, or potholes that I have hit, that I've already taken the blow for it, so you don't need to if you just do this, right? That's a valuable skill, I think, to have a back and forth and a good relationship with an investor.
It's one thing to have unit K have a plumbing issue, but what happens if unit K, F, X, and Y all have them at the same time and they're all connected? So how do you handle all of those things? So having infrastructure is massive in when you're looking to scale.
And it's, some of these things, you want to make sure that you fix correctly, so you don't have unit X, Y, J, all of them all of a sudden now have the same issue, right? So if there is an issue, if it's just a leaky faucet, fine. But if something keeps getting clogged, that tells me that somewhere along the line we might have a bigger problem. Let's get a camera in there to figure it out and go straight to the source, versus putting some lipstick on it or a Band-Aid and just pray that it works.
Yes. So, being that you're in Southwest Florida, what's the most overlooked opportunity for buyers and investors right now?
We have a lot of land in certain areas that I feel are very cheap. I just sold two today for, I think, $12,000 a piece, and they have water and sewer, right? I mean, that now it's in an area where a little hard to get to, it's not really developed, but somebody can go in there, buy that lot for 12 grand. And I'm actually doing this with four other lots that me and my partner own, is we're going to start going vertical on these, because we bought these lands for, nothing. And, we've been sitting on them for a little while, and it's time to start developing. So with costs the way that there are, if it's done correctly and done smart, I think developing, building homes, it is a good aspect to get into. Now, I'm not going to be the one building it. I'm more of, hey, we got to keep it under X amount of dollars in order for me to sell it at this, or we have to keep our expenditures, to a certain point, because if we end up keeping these for 5 years, we want this amount of cash flow out of each one of them. So I think that is, start picking up some land in some areas that you don't necessarily, they aren't necessarily popular right now. And if you can do that, and even if you hold on to them for a couple of years, I mean, everything is just starting to, really congest. And these areas that are so far off the beaten path 10 years ago now are, oh, that's just right down the street. Like, that's what we're seeing a lot of too here.
If you can see it now, it's going to cost you. If you can see it in the future, it's where it's going to make you money. So, Joey, for the listener who's looking to acquire their first major investment property this year, what would you say would be their very first step that they could take today?
Congratulations. I think it's a good time. first and
For sure.
foremost, right? Not in 2022, 2023, because they'd be taking a beating right now, right?
True.
So for identifying the timing, awesome. Kudos, give you that. I would say that have your team in place. Have a real estate agent that has a background in investing and is an investor themselves, right? I always like to learn from people that do, right? The same thing with golf. You know, my coaches were fairly good golfers and competing and all that stuff back in their day. So yes, I would listen to them because they have been where I want to go, or, you know, somewhere along that parallel path, and understand the financing end of things. And we're seeing more creative financing, you know, coming through. So it's not necessarily, hey, it's the conventional 20% down, this, that, and the other. Sometimes these deals work if we can massage the numbers a little bit. You know, if seller carries some, you know, X, Y, and Z, different loan products. Again, loaded question there, but for the most part, I would say have a solid team and a solid team of advisors behind you to kind of bounce ideas off of, bounce situations off of, so you don't find yourself falling in a pothole, you know, 6 months from today.
Always learn from other people's mistakes. Yeah. But you, like you said, identify the time.
I mean, I've absolutely lived my life by that. Even, you know, when I got my first job at a golf course, you know, I was at TPC Prestantia here, and, you know, at the time it was a premier golf club, right? And I'm at Bag Drop watching all of these Porsches and Lexus and all of these beautiful cars that I really haven't seen. I was like, what do you do? Like, and I was a sponge, you know. I mean, every time I'd get a chance to play golf with everybody that I could, just to learn from them and get a better understanding of what do you do, how do you do it, why did you choose that path. I was probably annoying to them, honestly, but, you know, it was a great learning lesson for me moving forward. And I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, 43 years old, looking at 16-year-old Joey, I was like, that kid was pretty smart back then.
Always learn from those that are around you, especially those that have screwed up and done it. That way you don't have to do it too.
Exactly.
Joey, thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure. This went by super quick. I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me on Make Yourself at Home. I hope you found insights and inspiration to help you navigate your real estate journey with confidence. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share this show with your friends, because everyone deserves to feel at home. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and keep making moves that matter.